Well, it's clear to many of us that the country's just gone bat guano crazy, and it's not only not slowing down, it seems to be accelerating. And so the question, I think, that needs to be asked is, why? Why? Why is this happening? Just last month, Coca-Cola, of course, was leaked that one of their diversity training programs talked about how the Coca-Cola employees should try to act less white. And Coke got pretty badly burned when that got out, and they started backpedaling, of course. But this week we find that, left-wing centers of ideological thought like Budweiser beer, which you may remember, had an employee leak some of their diversity training, including this wonderful thing called the gender unicorn. Notice, by the way, the genitalia, which is neither male nor female, but simply a double helix. It's all in the DNA, you see. So Budweiser beer is sending out this kind of training to its employees who presumably make beer. These are not deep philosophical hotbeds of conversation, these areas. And we also discovered that Disney now has told its park employees they have to go through the same thing. They're setting up little racial groups so that all the Disney employees can be racially segregated and be comfortable with each other, and how it's going to be on the white Disney employees to make the approach because it's too stressful for blacks, and on and on and on and on and on. We all know how much garbage there is, and we all know how crazy it is, and we all know it's getting worse every day, but why? Why is it happening? Well, I think I've got the answer. I really do. And I owe a lot of this to one of our members here at BillWhittle.com who recommended a book to me that might clarify some of this for me. So let me talk a little bit about that book. It's just a little light summer reading, really. It's called The Destruction of the European Jews. You might want to notice the word density in here. It's actually surprisingly readable. It's written by Raul Hilberg. But it's a read, and it is exhaustive. And I mean, when I say exhaustive, it's got the name of every single German officer at every single meeting. This is, to the Holocaust, what Shelby Foote's Civil War trilogy or William Manchester's biography of Winston Churchill was, which is the last word on the subject, written by a Jewish author, obviously. And when I read this, I learned a couple of things that were interesting. And the reason that I was pointed to this, and the reason the second it was recommended to me that I knew we were onto something, was because when you look at the destruction of the European Jews, what you see people complying with something that they know is catastrophic, and they comply with it anyway. Why? Why? Well, as far as the story of the European Jews goes, this is much deeper than I either am going to get into or need to get into. But of all the things that I've read in this book, and I'm about a quarter of the way through it, the one single paragraph that I read here that really shocked me, written by this Jewish author on this, expert on this particular subject, said that once the Jews had been forced into the ghettos, once the Germans had issued a decree, like you must wear a large star front and back, the people did not only not do this reluctantly, they did it eagerly. They lined up for it. They were eager to wear these stars once they were in the ghetto. And Mr. Hilberg identified this, which seems mysterious to other people, but it's happening right in front of our eyes. The reason that once they were in the ghetto and sufficiently terrorized, the reason that the Jews were eager, in line, excited to get these stars on them, was what Mr. Hilberg called anticipatory compliance. Anticipatory compliance. This is the first half of the two-part puzzle of what's going on in America today. Anticipatory compliance basically means that if somebody has done something terrible to you and they continue to do terrible things to you and you expect they're going to do more terrible things to you, then it is a natural and logical reaction to adhere to their instructions so faithfully that maybe they'll do less terrible things to you than they would otherwise. Anticipatory compliance. It's the understanding that you are at the mercy of an overwhelmingly powerful force that has total control over you. And so therefore, it is in your survival interest to show that power that you are not a troublemaker and that you're going along with things. Because if you make trouble and start throwing rocks, things are going to be even worse. That's the psychology of it. It is very similar to the psychology of the Stockholm Syndrome, which as you know, probably by now, because I've talked about it many times, is a true story where a number of hostages were taken in Stockholm, and over the course of several days, these hostages began to identify with their captors. And when I say identify with them, I don't mean they pretended to be on the side of the captors. I'm sure they started doing that right away. But after a short period of time, a few days, these hostages who had guns to their heads, in Stockholm in this case, and in the case of the Jews in the ghettos in Germany and Poland, when you have a gun to your head, you assume the values and the imperatives of the people that are holding that gun to your head. When I say you assume them, you inhabit them. They become your issues. By the third day, these people were not pretending to be on the same side as their hostage takers. They were 100% behind the cause of the people that were holding a gun to their head, because psychologically they knew that was the best way to survive, was to be as much like the people that are doing the killing as possible, so perhaps they won't kill you. It's why some of the Jewish leaders started to wear boots like their German overlords and so on, started to look like them, dress like them. All of this is a psychological imperative. If you feel you're about to be killed, you're going to do whatever you can in order to make yourself as palatable to that oppressor as you possibly can. They are watching thousands and then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and then millions of them disappear. And they'd been watching it for 10 years, incrementally. That's the thing, you see. They didn't just start by putting Jews in the ghetto. They did it incrementally. First of all, they took away the licenses of the professionals. Then they said, well, you can't really intermarry with Aryan Germans. And then they said you can't be in the parks, or you can't ride the trains, or you can't be on the streets after a certain hour, or you have to wear a star to identify yourself. They didn't do all this at once. They did it incrementally, put these people into a state of absolute terror where anticipatory compliance became not only the smart play, well, call it smart play, at least it's a smart play for people who are unarmed, but it also became essentially the only option for people who've been that badly brutalized mentally and emotionally. So that all makes perfect sense to me. Now, the second part of the question is the tougher one, because these people had something to be afraid of. What is it that the executives at Coca-Cola or Budweiser or Disney are afraid of? If what we're seeing with these woke education programs and diversity training, all the rest of this garbage, if get woke, go broke does in fact mean financial damage to your company, then why does it continue to happen? Why? Why are we seeing what is clearly, with these diversity programs, anticipatory compliance with the dictates of the woke mob? What is the gun to the head of the progressives who run these companies that are making their decisions? What is it? I thought it was the power of social proof and the power of social media to bring down opprobrium and all of this stuff onto somebody's head and cause you a lot of business troubles. But then I had this real breakthrough. I think it's a breakthrough. The progressive people that run companies like Budweiser, Disney, Coca-Cola are in anticipatory compliance because, as liberals, their entire identity is made up of the appearance of being virtuous. Not actual virtue, the appearance of being virtuous. And these people are very familiar with doublethink. These are the kind of people that say, we really should raise taxes, and I'm a billionaire, or I'm a millionaire, I'm going to pay more than anybody, and I think taxes are way too low. We need to raise taxes so we can help the poor people. That is anticipatory compliance. That is a person who is afraid of the 99% and their threatening gestures, and is telegraphing to them that they are in full compliance, they're down with the program. The reason these executives are doing this anticipatory compliance is because if they don't, their identity will be destroyed. It is, in a way, a death sentence for them. It is an actual gun held to their head. If these executives don't go down this progressive pathway, they not only lose their friends, they lose their identity. All the charity checks that they've written, all of the events that they go to, all of this stuff that they do to show the mob and the regular people that they're the good ones, right? We're the good Jews. We're on your side. We're the good progressives. We're on your side. We're the good rich people. We're on your side. And I'm going to prove it to you by doing what you would want me to do before you even ask me to do it. Anticipatory compliance. That's why the world is going crazy. That's why people like you and me are absolutely immune to this kind of thing. Our value system is not predicated on what people think of us. My worth to myself is not predicated on the opinion of people I've never met. And it's not predicated on the opinion of people I go to cocktail parties with, because I don't go to that many cocktail parties. There are a few people in my life that I care about. Their opinion matters to me, but mostly my opinion of myself matters to me. Abraham Lincoln said that, I think this quote is pretty much exact. He said, "If when my time in office expires, I shall have only one friend left, but that friend is myself, then I will be satisfied." That's a profound thing to say. So if you wonder why the whole country seems to be going crazy, it's going crazy because the people that make the decisions to put these programs, these diversity programs and stuff in place, all of the woke stuff, all of the racial awareness stuff, all of that, the people that make the decisions to hire the people to bring them in to do that training will be destroyed as people if they don't. They must anticipate compliance with what the liberal mob is demanding, and that is their way of making the liberal mob go away. And if the liberal mob doesn't attack them, then they get to be people still.